I had a guy come to me recently. It was so funny. He was like, you know, you're making more than my parents, right?
At 19 years old, today's guest turned a teenage side hustle into a thriving consulting business that brings him tens of thousands every month while working from his university dorm room.
Every time I'm delusional, I end up achieving it. You know, like if you told me 3 years ago when I first started that I'd be 19 and, you know, this month we're going to do 70K cash, like 70K a month at 19, like what are the odds? What are the statistics for that to even happen? Especially growing up in Malaysia.
What do you think it is about you that allows you to do as well as you have within this space in particular?
I feel like everybody in the space is focused on their own profits and how much money they make. But I think from a young age and even starting out, I was always obsessed about what I can do for other people.
We dug deep to uncover his journey from high-achieving student to successful entrepreneur, looking at the mindset shifts, attitudes, and key decisions that he took to fuel his huge success at such a young age.
I've never looked at statistics. I've never looked at what's reasonable, what's conventional, what I'm supposed to do. I just do whatever I want, and somehow it's just always worked out.
I mean, your name is one I've heard of for a long time at this point. You know, originally, young uni student, came to London, setting new personal bests every month with the amount of money coming in to the business. And, you know, we met like a year ago at this point, vaguely through friends and, you know, things going on in London. And yeah, man, I'm glad we got this opportunity to chat a bit before and then come on here and, yeah, help tell your story, bro.
Yes, sir. I'm excited. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure, man. So yeah, I mean, just to get started, for those that don't know you, who is SooWei and what does he do?
Yeah, so my name is SooWei. I'm 19 years old. I run an online consulting business where I help online coaches scale up their businesses, basically. So that's, in a 5-second nutshell, basically, that's what I do.
Amazing, man. And, you know, we'll go into how you got there, the steps you took along the way. Again, the fact that you're 19 and doing this now. But, you know, as a little challenge, if you were to take the explanation of what you do and dumb it down to the simplest possible terms so that anyone can understand, like, okay, this is what my business actually does, what would you say that is?
So I've literally just helped build systems and I make online coaches more money. So I just help them with their marketing, with their sales, with their fulfillment, basically the A to Z process of what it takes to actually scale up an online coaching business. And I add an extra few, like multiple 5 figures to their monthly revenue. And that's what I basically do.
Sick, man.
Yeah.
So, you know, let's take it back, not to the very start, but to the start of your journey.
Yeah.
Right? So 19 years old now, you know, from our conversation the other day, I know you're a few years into this, but take me back to the start. Like, when did you realize, okay, cool, this online money space is what I want to be in, what I want to be doing?
It started in COVID, actually. So back in high school when I was in Malaysia, I was 16 years old. COVID happened, and so basically everything that I was doing just got put on pause. And, you know, I was basically the star athlete in high school. I got good grades. I was, like, school was everything for me. And so that was what I really enjoyed and what I excelled in. And then, you know, just like that, it was just taken away. And so I had to kind of pivot my attention and, you know, all my effort that I put towards school, basketball, and everything into something else, because that's just the person I am. And so at first it was just, you know, doing degenerate stuff, you know, like drinking, not doing the right thing, smoking, all this type of stuff. And it got so bad to the point where I finished like playing games. I think it was GTA or Fortnite or some game like that. I finished playing that game for like 12 hours in a day. And I wrapped up, I, you know, hopped off the call with my friends and I looked at myself in the mirror. I was like, is this what I really wanted to do at 16 years old? And the next day, I told my guys I just wasn't hopping on the game. I started searching up how to make money online, and that's when I came across my first ever side hustle, which was Instagram theme pages. So I started that, and that was kind of my first sense. And I worked like 12 hours a day. You know, when I want to do something, when I want to accomplish something, I just, you know, spend all my time and energy towards it. And so that was like my first ever venture that I started. I was able to make like, you know, 3 to 5K a month, which was not bad for a 16, 17-year-old, but it took me like, I think like a solid year to see my first sale come through. But I think that built the persistence that I needed to have in order to kind of build the business that I have today and everything. And so, yeah, I started during the COVID days, basically.
And what were those early days like for you? You know, because you were in school,
Yeah.
and we'll go into what school was like in general,
Mhm.
but, you know, building this business, I'm assuming there will be people asking questions.
Yeah.
I'm assuming not everyone understands why you stopped playing Fortnite with the boys and you're on to this IG
Yeah.
hustle. So what was that first year of experience like for you?
Oh, it was hard because I grew up in Malaysia, so I didn't even grow up in like the U.S. where it was common to kind of try these things. Like trying to start a business in a place like Malaysia was just not very common, especially at a young age. Like I did this at 16, and so everyone looked at me like I was crazy. Everyone looked at me like I was just not doing what I was supposed to do. My parents put me in a great school. They provided great education, and I was meant to go down the route of just, getting good grades, getting in a, top school, and then just getting my degree and getting a job like everyone else is. But I kind of just took a completely different approach. And when I got into space, like a lot of people just asked me like, what are you doing? And for a long time, I wasn't making any money, right? It took me like a year. But I had this like delusion inside me that just got me to keep on going. I don't know what it was. I can't even explain it. Because if I looked at why I started and what made me keep on going, I don't think I can explain it. I just kept on doing it because I think I genuinely just enjoyed the process. I didn't even care if I had the money. I just enjoyed doing this thing where I was building a business and I was helping people and all that stuff. But when the money came in, obviously that changed everything. But growing up in Malaysia, doing this and not making money at the start, I didn't even tell my parents. But my friends all knew, and I was just laughed at nonstop because it was just so out of the ordinary. It was just so different from what everyone else is doing, and I was the only one. But yeah, it was hard for the first year for sure.
Again, we'll go into a lot of what you said there, but you said a word that I think, at some point I wanted to bring up regardless, but you mentioned delusion, right? I named this podcast Delusion by Design, speaking to entrepreneurs, creatives, people who essentially chose to live life against conventional wisdom, right? Against the grain. So I guess double-sided question, what does delusion mean to you? And how has your relationship with it changed?
Yeah, I'll answer the first one. I think delusion just means that the belief that you can achieve something no matter how unrealistic it is. And you're going against everyone's thinking, you're going against all the odds, you're going against all the statistics and everything. I think that's what delusion is. When you have that kind of unwavering belief that you will achieve this outcome no matter what happens, And I think my relationship with delusion has grown, like every time I'm delusional, I end up achieving it. Like if you told me 3 years ago when I first started that I'd be 19 and, this month we're going to do 70K cash, like 70K a month at 19, like what are the odds? What are the statistics for that to even happen? Especially growing up in Malaysia. So I've never looked at statistics. I've never looked at what's reasonable, what's conventional, what I'm supposed to do. I just do whatever I want. And somehow it's just always worked out. And I think it's just because like I don't like to put myself in a box where it's like you're only told to do this thing, I've always liked to kind of test outside the box and try to just push the barriers and push my boundaries and see what I can achieve. And I think like as I've achieved more, I just believe that I can achieve like way, way, way bigger things, And so I look at delusion as this amazing thing that not a lot of people have, but if you have it and if you develop it over time, I think it's generally one of the best traits you can possibly have, especially as like a business owner, entrepreneur,
I love that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, let's circle, around to the 70K months and, everything you're doing. But before that, I think there's a little gap to fill, right? Because you started with the IG themed pages.
Yeah.
Spent a year on that before any money came in. Started at 16, and now you're 19 with a business that's making you 70K this month. Yeah, if you could fill in the gap, kind of like what were the steps to get there, right? Because that's a big jump that over a 3-year period for someone with a bunch of experience would already be hard to do. But you did it at 16. So, I mean, firstly, what did that look like?
Yeah, it was a lot of trial and error. I'm not going to sit here and say that every business venture that I touched was successful. Like, I think I just made it so that I couldn't not make money. And so even though I was like, technically the IG business was a failure, but I just worked until like I got my first few payments and I got the ball rolling. And so like looking from the outside in, like for the amount of time I put towards it, it just wasn't worth it for the amount of money I made. And so I started the IG theme page. I was making around 3 to 5K a month. I eventually just stopped that. But I found like a kind of a new passion for sales. I loved selling. It was something about just hopping on a call, pitching a service, handling objections, helping the person across the screen. Like, because if you're selling a genuinely good product, you can completely change their life, It was something about sales that just got me super, super intrigued. And I realized that, hey, sales is what I want to do. So from theme pages, I transitioned over to appointment setting. And that was like the trenches, I'd say. It was like, 12-hour days, just in the DMs, texting, getting a 5% commission. But I think that's what taught me persistence, and it gave me the grit to just push through, even though I wasn't making a ton of money. And so eventually, after I got into appointment setting, I booked too many calls for my closer to where he couldn't take the calls. So naturally, I was like, okay, why don't I take the calls, the extra calls that you don't want to take? And so I became a closer. And so I was kind of doing a hybrid of being a setter and a closer. That was when I kind of learned the entire sales stuff, like that's why I talk the way that I talk. That's why I can express my tonality. I think that's why I just kind of just learned all these soft skills and speaking skills and everything. And so I learned sales and I got into management. And so I started managing different offers. And this was like all in that 6-month period, so I was forced to like adapt fast, because when a new opportunity came, I just took it. I was like, okay, I weighed up the pros and cons. Is this better than my current position? Yes. Okay, let's go in, and so I didn't second guess myself. I was like, is this position better than where I'm at right now? Would I thank myself for taking this position because the pros are better than the cons? If it's yes, I dove right in. And so there was never that bit of like, oh, I'm not sure. I analyzed it. I analyzed each situation and each business model, you could say, but everything was calculated because I knew my end goal was running my own consulting offer, getting into private equity and all that stuff. And so I need to learn these skills anyways. So I learned the process really, really fast. And then I went from a sales manager to I guess like a growth partner, growth operator, whatever they call it these days. And that was when I just was in charge of scaling up high ticket offers. And the first guy I worked with, we took him from like, I think it was like 3K to 50K a month. And then we worked with this other guy, we took him from 3K to 35K. And we just got these insane testimonials and results to where I had too many guys wanting to work with me. And then that's when, I kind of created my new offer, which was a consulting business. It's called Goh Consulting right now. And that's kind of what I do right now. So that's in like a short time frame, but it was a lot of sales and it was a lot of like just getting the new opportunities and being around the right people. Because like, yeah, I worked hard, but I wouldn't have been here if it wasn't for the right people giving me those opportunities and allowing me to progress so fast.
For sure, man.
Yeah.
I think even the other day when we were speaking, you had mentioned the appointment setting and the closing. And that's something I wanted to dig into, because the way I understood it, at least, that was almost like a mini university crash course for you.
Yeah.
So what can you say about setting, about sales, and even just like as a first step that someone takes in their career for like people starting out? Is that something you'd recommend people get into?
I think it's one of the best things you can learn, because you can never go wrong with sales. Never. Like, sales has taught me basically everything I know. And it teaches you so much about human psychology and how to deal with people. I think that's the main skill that I've learned from sales. And if I could go back over, I wish I started with appointment setting. I wish that was the very first thing I started with, because appointment setting taught you how to just grind it out. It taught you like the work ethic, and it gets you money fast, because if you're part of a business that's already successful, you can learn the ins and outs of the business so fast, and you can learn what the closer's doing. You can learn what the operator's doing. You can learn what the business owner's doing and how each part of the business works. And you learn so fast because you're within the business, and you can progress up so fast as well. So let's say you're already booking a ton of calls. You can get a closer role in that company in a few months, in a few weeks. That's what I did. I booked too many calls to where he needed a closer, and I was like, oh, I want to close as well. And so I think appointment setting and closing is probably the best position to get in, because sales, you can't go wrong with sales. Like, there's literally no bad thing that will happen if you learn sales. I think that's part of the reason why I know what I know as well, is because of the sales skill set that I had early on in my career, in my journey.
For sure. And even, within that, you were mentioning the coaches that you scaled up and, the testimonials you managed to get.
Yeah.
Yeah, what was it that got you to land on info products as the way to go and what you wanted to be involved in general?
Well, info products changed my life. Like I remember investing my first bit of money into a mentor. I invested $4,000 at 17. And when I invested that $4,000, I was so scared. Like I was so scared. My mom told me no. My dad told me no. Everyone thought it was a scam. But I dropped it anyways because I knew the person and I was close to him, and it ended up working, And with that investment, I was making like 15 to 20K a month by learning and applying what he taught me. So I was lucky that I had a great mentor. I was really lucky. A lot of guys have bad experiences at the start. But I was lucky that I had a great mentor, and this completely shifted my perspective on my future and everything, right? Now I was in a position where I'm making 15 to 20K a month as an 18-year-old in Malaysia. So if you convert the currency and everything, I was like basically making doctor's salary, which is ridiculous. I was making more than a doctor at 18. And it just changed everything for me. But it was because I got the information that I needed in order to scale up to the point where I wanted to be. I don't think that would have been, I think that would have been possible with YouTube. But like I said, you can either pay with time or money. I think this as well. Like we're in a stage where we'd only pay with money from now on. Like we don't want to waste time trying to spend to figure out this on ourselves. Like we just want the blueprint and just get there as fast as possible. And InfoPros is just the best way to get there, and it's so low barrier to entry. You don't need to invest thousands of dollars to get into the space. Like you really don't. You can get in the space, make some money for free, and then scale up wherever you want. And so, yeah, I think info naturally fell in my lap, but it also changed my life, which is why I love the space, honestly.
For sure, man.
Yeah.
No, I think you're absolutely right about paying with time or money.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's time that you need to use to pay, and that's just the name of the game. But when the money becomes available and you can use it as a rocket fuel to get you to where you want to go, that's when the time horizon starts getting much shorter. You're in info now.
Yeah.
There's a lot of other guys in info too. Yeah, you've been crushing it from when you started.
Yeah.
What do you think it is about you that allows you to do as well as you have within this space in particular?
That's a great question. I think it's my approach on info in general. I feel like everybody in the space is focused on their own profits and how much money they make. But I think from a young age and even starting out, I was always obsessed about what I can do for other people. I wanted to serve my clients best I could. And, when I think about info in general, if a client pays me a few $1,000s, it is my duty to do whatever I can in my control, in like everything that I can do to get that client the result that I promised them. And I think so many people just look at it as a simple transaction. I don't look at it as a transaction. Like, yes, I received the money, but you paid me, you put your trust in me to achieve this specific goal that I said that you could achieve. If I don't help you get there, I don't want your money. And so like that's the way I look at it. And I think my emphasis on the client fulfillment aspect and the product that I'm selling, especially for my clients as well, is what separates me from everyone else. Because a lot of times, like, it's easy to just like, okay, the guy already paid me. I just can do the bare minimum. I'll go find the next guy to pay me. But what people don't understand is that if you get that person the result that they wanted, they're going to come back because they're going to have this new thing that they want, and they're going to refer the friends that they have because you changed their life. And it's so much more fulfilling that way because you're actually building a real business that helps people, right? And so a lot of the times, and the reason why info has such a bad stigma is because nobody actually cares. Nobody cares about whether or not you get the result. As long as the money is in my pockets, I'm happy. But why would you not care, Because if they took their hard-earned money, they put their trust in you and they invested in you, it is your duty to make sure that you do everything that you can to get them the result. If not, you don't deserve the money. That's generally the mindset I've had from day one. And that's the mindset I had with every transaction that I've had, which is why I think I have the reputation that I have, is because not a lot of people can say something bad about me because I do whatever I can to help you get what you want. And I think that mindset alone is what separates me from everybody else. Not a lot of guys have that, but I wish more people did, honestly.
No, 100%. I think
Yeah.
even as an approach to life, bro, like if you go in and aim to be an honest guy and stick to your word and deliver on what you promise and
Yeah.
don't show people up and try to do everything with a smile on your face, like
Yeah.
life will tend to smile back,
Mm-hmm.
you know? But, you know, that's specific to info, and I think it applies across the board
Yeah.
to a lot of things. But even just to dig further into that,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because, you know, some people will go into the space you've gone into in their 20s with a lot more experience under their belt,
Yeah.
and in twice the time not manage to achieve half the results that you've managed to.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think it is about the way that you've approached business that has allowed you to have the results you've had and even generate the amount of money you've been able to as a result of that?
I think it's a skill set. You know, I didn't rush that aspect. I fell in love with the process so much that I developed so many skills to the point where I haven't, you know, I have a service that not a lot of people can deliver, right? And so an example of this is that if a guy comes in and, you know, they try to make his money as fast as possible, you're not actually going to learn the fundamental skills in order to make that amount of money because you're going to try and rush the process. I genuinely enjoy learning. I genuinely enjoy being so involved in my clients' businesses. I enjoy different skills, getting knowledge, getting information, getting insights, all that stuff. And so if you enjoy the process, that doesn't feel like work to you. The money will come. You know, I've never really been fixated on money. That's always been a byproduct of the work that I really enjoy doing. If I made $3K a month, I'd honestly still be happy. Okay, I'm lying, but maybe not as happy, but I'd still be okay, you know, because in my opinion, it's not about the money, it's about whether or not you enjoy it. And if you enjoy it, like you'll do what it takes, you know, and you'll go that extra mile and you won't even look at it as work. This is all fun to me. Like it feels like a game, you know. I'm going to Dubai in like 2 days, like literally 2 days, you know. And I'm going with a bunch of clients as a client retreat, and I'm just gonna go there. We have no plans. We're just gonna go to Dubai. We're gonna ride jet skis, rent cars, do whatever, and it's gonna be so fun, you know? Like it actually feels like a video game to me, and it's so fun to do this type of stuff. And we've been blessed with the opportunity that we have in online space. We have opportunities like this where we can do these type of things. So why be so fixated on the end result? Just fall in love with the process, and you'll get there eventually, you know?
I love that. Great
Yeah.
message. And even the other day I was speaking,
Yeah.
you were telling me when you were younger, you were, you know, shy,
Yeah.
introverted,
Yeah.
not really out there in general. What part of the journey, what about you, at which stage do you think you were able to kind of build up the confidence and, start becoming the type of person you are today?
I think it was sales. 100% sales, because I remember on my first Zoom call, it was so bad. I had my first sales call, and you know, I hopped on the call with the prospect, and my voice was quivering. It was so shaky, and I couldn't get the words out of my mouth. I went through the whole presentation, you know, the whole sales call. I knew I wasn't gonna close this guy. I knew I wasn't gonna close him because I was so nervous and so shaky, and I was like, I needed to say the price. At the time, I was selling like a 3K offer. I couldn't say the price. You know, I tried saying it, but it just wouldn't come out of my mouth. And I left the call before I even price dropped. It was so bad. And so, like, that was my first experience of sales. But I've had so many reps of just talking to strangers on the phone where it's like, I know exactly what I need to say. And I forced myself to be in uncomfortable positions to learn the skills that I'm not good at in order to basically build myself up to be able to speak the way that I speak and present the way that I can present myself right now. But it was just like putting myself in uncomfortable positions where I'm not used to it and just reps, you know. I've probably taken like 400, 500 sales calls at this point. So it's like ingrained in my head how to introduce myself, how to build rapport, how to have small talk, how to handle objections, like all this stuff, right? And I think that is shown in my content and kind of just the way I talk. But I was never like this, you know, like when I first started, I was just super shy, but it was just the reps that allowed me to kind of get out of my shell.
Yeah, man, there's a saying that goes, competence breeds confidence.
Yeah.
And as you said, you became familiar with discomfort.
Yeah.
You put yourself into these situations.
Yeah.
You built up the skill set, and eventually the skill set speaks for itself, right? But we're speaking about you being shy, insecure kid.
Yeah.
I guess good time to pivot to growing up and family life and
Yeah.
how you were as a kid. And yeah, I mean, to kick us off there, I think the main thing I'd love to hear from you is like, what is it about you during your childhood that you think is the most important thing to understand to explain the results you went on to have early on in life?
It's a great question. I think everyone interprets their backgrounds differently. I came from a very good background. My dad was wealthy. He's a very good, successful businessman. He provided me a very, very good education, private education my whole life. And I think looking back at that, there's two ways you can look at that. You can either end up as like a rich kid that ends up, just kind of just working in the company or doing whatever and just kind of not really fulfilling their potential.
Coasting.
Yeah, just kind of coasting by life because you have that safety net and it never gives you that drive to really work hard. Or you can just have that drive to want to fulfill his legacy, if that makes sense, and kind of fill in the shoes that was given to you. And from a young age, I've always known that I want to be hyper successful. I want to be like my dad. If I want to be like my dad, I can't do the normal things that everyone else does. And that's how I looked at it. I wanted to be like my dad. And so from a young age, everything he told me, I took to heart. And when I was 13, he told me I remember this story like it was yesterday. He told me that I wasn't cut out to be a businessman. And when I heard that, my heart sank, because I wanted to be exactly like him. And my heart sank. And he said that my EQ, which was like my emotional intelligence, was just too low. I was too straightforward. I was more suitable for a kind of profession like a doctor, where it was just do this, follow this procedure, and then do this, get paid good money, and then go back. I didn't want that because I want to live my life like my dad. And so he told me my EQ was low. I remember that. The next day, 13-year-old me decided to buy a book about emotional intelligence, and I read that book for a week. In 1 week, I finished that book. And in 2 months, I started meditating at 13. And that was when I was just like, okay, he pointed out this weakness. I know I can change it. Let me just buy the books. Let me just buy the knowledge. Let me just read all the information and change myself. Because I knew I could change myself. And that's what I did. And within 3-4 months, my dad asked me, how did you change your character completely? And I just told him exactly what I did, and he was shocked. This 13-year-old kid just bought a book and just read this whole thing and changed his complete personality and his character type. And he told me more weaknesses, and I bought more books. And I learned how to speak to people. And I got out of my shell, and I started reading, books on how to win friends and influence people. I started reading sales books, mindset books. And I read these personal development books until I was 17. I still read them now. And those shaped my characteristics that I have today. And I think that specific instant where he kind of told me, hey, you're not cut out for this, that completely made me want to prove him wrong, because I knew I could, I knew I would. And me starting this whole thing at 16 was also a reason to prove him wrong. So it started as his online business to kind of prove to him that I can do it. But it ended up, making a lot more money than I expected, and now I'm still doing it. So yeah, that's actually why I started this whole online thing in the first place. It wasn't for fun. It wasn't to make money online. It was to prove my dad wrong.
I love that. I love that, man.
Yeah.
No, and we'll go into proving wrong as well.
Yeah.
But I think one thing to pick out there is just your ability to take on criticism as a chance to improve. And rather than getting bitter, getting better.
Yeah.
Right. And, even there, circling to the proving people wrong, that was the motivating factor for you to get started, right?
Yeah.
With the IG theme pages, and then later with the appointment setting and then the closing. Do you think that's still your motivation?
I think to an extent, honestly, because, a lot of people still don't understand what I'm doing. The online space is still, it doesn't have the greatest stigma around it, and I feel like oh, maybe people think it's not a real business. And it's like, it really is, you know, like my goal is to make $1 million this year, and I'm going to hit that. I'm going to figure out a way to hit that. And I feel like there's always someone out there that has something to say. And there's always something you can do to prove them wrong. And it's like, well, why not? You know, why not just shut them up with the amount of success that you have? So I think my business has kind of developed past trying to prove people wrong. But at the same time, there's always that one voice out there that's like, oh, you're not doing this real thing. You're not actually doing it. But yeah, I think it has evolved. I think it has evolved. It's more of a passion now than it is like proving people wrong. Because when you see like the clients change their lives because of the advice you gave them, it's generally one of the best feelings in the world. I get more happy when my clients make money, you know, like compared to me making money. Like if my guy got a 10K sale compared to me getting a 10K sale, I'd be happier for my client, you know? And so I think now it went from like a trying to prove people wrong to like, now it's a passion. Now I actually fully enjoy it. But at the same time, if someone has something to say, I'm always going to try and prove them wrong, you know?
And how's your relationship, you know, with your parents,
Yeah.
but especially with your dad, and the image you have of your dad changed over time?
No, I love them both. I'm in London right now. They're back in Malaysia. I call them every day. I think I'm on like a 90-day streak, you know, of calling both of them every single day. So no matter how busy I get, I stay grounded, and I want to make sure I'm talking to them. They know what's happening in my life. They're giving me advice whenever I face problems. They're helping me out. So I'm very tight with them still. And, you know, especially my dad, now that I'm growing up and everything, is talking to me more about not so much my business, but the overall market, you know, like what's happening in the stock industry, you know, NVIDIA going down, the AI revolution, what's happening, what I should do, what I should prepare for to help my business scale up even more. All these different types of things, like we can actually talk about that now. So this is what I wanted all along, you know, to be able to talk to my dad about these type of things. And because I'm older, I'm turning 20 in like 2 months, which is crazy to even say. Because I'm getting older, I'm starting to like get more interested in world news, politics, AI, all these bigger markets, because I don't want to run info for the rest of my life. I want to get into these other big industries and everything. And my dad is just helping me open my eyes up and opening my perspective to make me realize what's possible. Because 50K a month in his eyes is like chump change, you know, it's nothing. And he's always challenging me for more. He's proud of me. Like every time we meet new people, he's always saying like, oh, you know, my son, he makes this amount, you know, he does this by himself. And it's a great feeling, but he's always pushing me to do more because he knows I can do more. And yeah, it's a great feeling. It's a great feeling.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And, you know, sticking to the childhood point,
Mm-hmm.
you mentioned private school,
Yeah.
you know, brought up around other people, you know, especially Malaysia, private school, international school, a lot of expats, a lot of people from different corners of the world, usually wealthier people in general. What would you say your environment was like growing up with the people around you?
It was very judgy, and I was very sheltered. Like, we talked about this as well. Like, I didn't face a lot of life problems growing up. You know, I wish I could say, no, I don't wish I could say, but I can't sit here and say, oh, I went from broke to rich. I'm never going to, you know, talk about that. I'm never going to have that image to sell something, you know? I'm just going to tell it how it is. I came from a rich background. I went to private school my whole life, and I was sheltered growing up. You know, I was sheltered growing up. But that also played into my advantage because I was able to, you know, start something at 16 and not have to worry about, you know, putting food on the table or worry about making money. And I didn't have that pressure, right? But growing up in international school, it was very, very judgy. You know, people would look at me weird if I did something that was not normal. I'd get laughed at. You know, when I first posted my first piece of content on Instagram, oh my goodness, I got clowned for like, I think 2-3 weeks straight. You know, it was so bad. It was so bad. But I kept on doing it. Like, it's a delusion. I don't know what was up with me, but, you know, I just kept on doing it. I was like, you know, screw them. I'll do what I want to do. And I just kept on doing it. And it got to a point where I started getting the followers, and then people shut up after they saw the followers, they saw the sales. Like, you can't say anything at that point. But at the beginning, of course, you can say something, you know? And so I was always laughed at, especially when I started out the online journey. And then yeah, I mean, once the sales started coming in, like they were like, yo, I had a guy come to me recently. It was so funny. He was like, you know, you're making more than my parents, right? He said that. And he was the guy that laughed at me the whole time in high school. Oh my goodness. He was the guy that made all the jokes. And he came to me like one-on-one. He was like, you know, you make more than my parents. And he started saying how he was proud of me and all that. And it's like, people would just do that, you know, like it's not even their fault. Because, I mean, what I was doing, if I didn't understand, if I wasn't doing it, I'd laugh at myself too. But I just had so much confidence in what I was able to do, and I knew how to make it work. So I saw the vision before anyone else saw it. So I was the only one that saw the vision. That's why I didn't laugh at myself. But yeah, there was a lot of judging and a lot of like jokes growing up because I was doing this whole thing in Malaysia.
What do you think it was about you that made you so different from the other guys you grew up with? Because I can guarantee you that wasn't the norm. There weren't other people trying. And for the most part, is what you said before, you know, a lot of people will want to coast through life. A lot of people will be comfortable being a DJ at least for the next 10 years. A lot of people just don't care.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think it was about you that actually got you to start taking action early and also to deal with the judgment and really just not care about what other people had to say?
Well, you only have one life. You know, you have one life. If you listen to what everyone else is saying around you, you'll do the things that they expect of you, and you'll be happy, but deep down you know that this is not what you're meant to do. You're doing it because you're doing it for other people. And I've always been a people pleaser growing up. I've always wanted to please the people around me, please my parents, please my friends, please my family members, everything. But I realized, like, if I'm only living one life and everyone's going to forget what I do, why don't I just do what I want to do in the first place? Because that's what's going to make me happy. When I realized that, I was just like, okay, you know, like, don't listen to the noise. Don't listen to the social norms and the expectations and what's realistic. Just do you, you know? And even if it doesn't work out, at least you know deep down that you've tried. I think that was what gave me the confidence to try and everything. And I read a book because I was in the whole self-improvement phase in 15, 16, all that. It was like The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Manson. Oh my, that book changed everything. Because I went from a people pleaser to like just not caring about what anyone thought and just doing what everyone thought was stupid. And that was what, that book literally sparked my entire journey. And so if you're like, if you're struggling with any type of judgment, you know, and you want to kind of get out of your own head, that book is going to change your life. I still reread it to this day because that book, like, it just changed everything. It made me realize, like, my thoughts are just, it's not even like real. You know, like, who cares what they think? Because they don't have your best interests in mind. So why are you going to listen to them? And like, at the end of the day, it's what you think is important. And that's what that book taught me. That's why I think it's like, if you keep feeding your mind the right knowledge, you keep on getting the right insights, and you keep on reading books, you keep on learning, and like, you'll be successful. You really will. And that's why I think info is so special as well. Because you provide the right info to the right person, they're going to make money. They're going to achieve what they want. They're going to achieve their dream physique, everything. So, yeah.
Yeah, man. Learning and implementing.
Yeah.
You know, running with it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just to start finishing up on childhood.
Yeah.
What's your relationship like now with the people you grew up with?
Oh, I still love him. I still love him. You know, a lot of guys will be like, oh, I don't hang with my high school friends. I love him to death. We just went to Paris like 2 months ago. We went on like a month vacation almost. We went to London. We went to Paris. And we just traveled across Europe. And it was like, I'll never not have fun with my boys, you know? I feel like business is fun. Entrepreneurship is fun. But it'll never beat the feeling of just joking around and having a laugh with your boys. It'll never beat that feeling. And I was part of that friend group that was extremely loud in school, super loud, like made the craziest jokes.
Kick that off.
You know, like that friend group, you know, that everyone like wanted to be part of, that everyone also hated because we were so damn loud. And so it's never a dull moment with them. It's never a dull moment. Like, I don't look at it as like, oh, you laughed at me, now I'm up, I'm not friends. Like, nah, you know, I still love them to death. I understand why they laughed at me. It's not that deep. And I think that's what people have to understand as well. It's like, not everyone wants the best for you, but if you're 16, like, they don't understand what laughing does to you. You can't blame them, you know? So I like to have a mind where it's like, just let it go. It's not that deep, you know? Like, just do what you want. they made this mistake in the past. Okay, sort it out. Cool. Now you're back to friends. It's really not that deep. So that's a mindset I love to have. And if I don't hold any grudges towards anyone, I live a better life. I'm happier as well. So
Absolutely.
yeah,
I couldn't agree more. And also, like, yeah, the friends you make at school, the ones you grow up with,
yeah,
if you do it right and if you're lucky with the people that they end up becoming as well, like, those can be friends for life,
exactly. Yeah.
honestly.
Mm-hmm.
And, now you're in uni.
Yeah.
I'm sure your thoughts have evolved over time, as,
Mm-hmm.
I know mine did.
Yeah.
But second year now, doing what you're doing with business,
Yeah.
doing what you're doing outside of life, what are
Mhm.
your thoughts on university as a path in general nowadays?
I think going to university was probably one of the best decisions I made because it got me out of my hometown. And it put me in a situation where I was forced to make new friends. I was forced to adapt to a new environment. And going from like a Malaysia, like a small island in Malaysia, Penang, to a big city like London, the change is crazy. I had a huge culture shock. I met different types of people. I met you here. I met Muhiz. I met the whole group here, And so going to university was, I don't like everyone in the online space looks down on university, but I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's actually a really good starting point, especially if you don't know what to do. It'll get you out of your hometown, first of all, which is huge for personal development and personal growth. It'll help you meet new people. It'll force you to, make new friends and everything. And it'll open your perspective on a lot of things. And so I think it's still super important, especially if you don't know what you want to do in life. And even if you're making money online, like I was making $15K a month before I went to uni, and I still went. Part of it was like, because I have Asian parents and all that. But part of it was also I wanted to get out of Malaysia, just move to a big city. If you can do that without university, then great. You're lucky. You're in the US or UK, great. But I was from Malaysia, so that was kind of like my only path to be in a big city with a student visa. So I think university path is not terrible. I don't think it's terrible. Everyone bashes on it. But if they bash on it, they're probably trying to sell you a course. Like it's not as good as it once used to be. I think we can all agree on that, but it's still a very valid option. I don't think it's worth the price. I think there's a better alternatives like the online space where I think it's good for at least still enjoying your youth and still getting memories out of life, which is one thing I wanted to touch on as well.
For sure.
Everyone thinks that it's all about making money and being career oriented. And I couldn't agree more. But if your whole life, starting when you're 17, is to quit high school, quit college, and just go all in on the business and work until you're 25 and you have all that money, what are you going to do then? Because you have your whole life to make money. Like, you don't, I see so many people rush their youth to try and make all this money and try to rush to be an adult. But why? Like, you're never going to have a time when you're 19 and 20 and you're hanging out with your college friends and you're going to these parties and all that stuff. So money is amazing. Business is great. Achievements are great. But at the same time, don't rush your youth. Don't try and speed up the process because you have your whole life to make money. As soon as you graduate college, you're 21, 22. You have 50 to 60 to 70 years to do whatever you want to do. Why would you rush that? My mom told me that. And it's like, yes, it doesn't make sense for me to be in college, but it makes sense for me to be in college to make memories and be a part of a friend group that is still fun. Because when you get out of college and you go in the workforce, it's completely different. The vibe changes. Everyone's on their own path. You don't make the right friends. This is the last opportunity you get to still enjoy your youth. And if you can balance both, why not?
I like that.
Yeah.
I think the only asterisk I'd add is, like yourself, I was in a lucky situation where I didn't have to get into debt to go into uni.
Yeah.
I think if you do have to go into debt, the equation starts looking a little different.
Yeah.
But, echo everything you said. I think, the memory parts is super important. And even based on that, how would you say you manage your time to actually ensure that you are able to live life and make memories and not just grind out 12-hour days?
Yeah. I mean, I'm one of those guys, if I grind out 12-hour days for too long, I get depressed. I need to see people. I'm a very social person. I need to have a close friend group. I need to have friends I have a deep connection with. And that's why I'm so close with my clients as well. We're going to like Dubai, I have guys flying 18 hours to come see everyone, it's crazy. But I'm a guy that thrives off of like deep connections. And if there's this trip that pops up, my friend is planning something, I'm going, because what you remember is not the 12-hour days that you work in your office, but you remember all the friends, all the stupid shit you did with your friends, all the random trips you went on, the things that you buy. Like, that's what you remember, not the actual work itself. And yes, work hard, put in the work, do what you need to do. But don't get so caught up in work where you don't forget to live, that you forget to live the life that you dreamt of. Because we all start a business to travel the world, buy nice things, have fun with friends. But if you're working all day, you're not doing any of these three things. So I think if I ask myself, or if I look at this trip and I'm like, okay, am I gonna have fun? Like, can I make back the money, or can I do this thing later on? I'm just gonna go on the trip. And this year I've already been on like 5 trips. So I've gone on too many, honestly. But it's so many memories, I want to live my 20s knowing that I lived it to the fullest. Because I have my whole life to make money. It's not about that. It's about meeting the right people. It's about making the right memories, having deep connections with people. That's what it's about. I think that's what a fulfilling life looks like. That's what a successful life looks like. Everyone attaches success to just money, but if you have money alone, you're not happy. You need the people. You need the experiences. You need the trips. You need all that stuff. And so that's why it's like, you gotta balance. And it took me so long to figure it out. Because in my first year of university, I was just always stuck in my dorm, just working all the time. But I regret so much to where it's like now I've learned that lesson the hard way, and I'm just going out more,
Swung the pendulum the other way.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's, memories and moments, right?
Yeah.
It's the things you remember, the things that stick out. And I remember even recently I saw Chris Williamson say something along the lines of, depending on how you choose to live your 20s, there's always an opportunity cost either way, right?
Exactly.
So either you're an underskilled 30-year-old or you're an underlived 30-year-old.
That's such a good quote, actually.
And I think the approach you've just described and chosen to take finds the middle ground between both of them.
Yeah, why not do both? Because you can, like everyone thinks it's one or the other. You can literally do both. It doesn't take you 10 hours to run a business. If you build the right systems and you have the right strategies and everything, it takes like 4 to 5. You can get that down from 8 to 10 or 8 to 12. How about 12 to 9? Like that's all the time that you can spend. Like, I'm not saying only work 4 to 5 hours a day on your business, but I'm saying that you can balance it. And so many people say that they don't have enough time. It's not that you don't have time. You just don't know how to work properly. You don't have the right systems in place. You don't know how to work on high leverage activities. You don't know how to outsource. So if you don't have time, generally look at what you can do or what you're doing on a day-to-day basis and start outsourcing things to a VA. I went on a dinner the other day, and I didn't want to make a reservation. I got my VA to do it. You know what I mean?
This guy.
But it's the little things like that. Like, I can outsource that. What can you outsource in your business? Because everyone's just too caught up in just work. It's not about the work. It's just about working on the right things, outsourcing the rest, and then making memories with the rest of the time you have. I think that's the perfect business lifestyle,
The golden equation.
Yeah.
How would you say your relationship with money is?
Oh, I wish I could say it was great. I'm a big saver. I don't like spending money. If it's like, the most expensive thing I've bought is only this. This is probably like the only thing that I've spent over $1,000 on that's material. All like, this is from Zara, this is from a Korean brand, this is from Zara as well. Like, yeah, my shoes are a bit expensive, but I don't like to spend. Because I think I realized how hard it is to actually make money. And that's why I don't spend as much. But when I was spending my parents' money, I bought everything. I bought the nice jackets. I bought whatever I wanted. I didn't even look at the price tag, all that stuff. But I think when you make money, it's like, it hurts to spend, especially if it's like, that jacket's not worth $1,000. Like, it's not. It's probably worth like $50. They just marked it up because of the brand, I don't care about brand. I really don't. If it looks good, then I'll buy it. If it's H&M and it's Zara, I'll buy it. I don't care. But I just don't like to spend, especially because I know how hard it is to make. And you never know. I know I'll forever be able to make money, but you never know when things can take a turn. And you always want to have so much money liquid that you can figure out what your next move is. You never want to be in a place of scarcity. You always want to operate from abundance, which is why I have like a set amount liquid in my bank account that's in investments, that's in the right places and all that, that's slowly appreciating over time.
And, one thing that through watching your content I thought was really interesting that I wanted to touch on was you mentioned something essentially along the lines of buying access to people.
Yeah.
So I'd love for you to touch on that concept, right? Because you moved to London not knowing anyone here. I don't know if you had come here before in your life, but probably not enough to build a circle. And now you're very well networked, established, not just from people within uni that you would have naturally met, but people across the city.
Yeah.
So, yeah, again, what's that concept of buying into circles that you've spoken about?
Yeah. I mean, this, like, your network is your net worth, like, the people you surround yourself with are the people you become. And so if I can get myself around guys that are doing more than me, I'm going to make more money. It's as simple as that, because they operate at a different frequency. They operate at a completely different level. Their perception on everything, the world, money, their business, the things they work on is skewed. It's completely different from how we look at it. And so if I'm doing 50 to 70K a month and I want to hit 150, 200K a month, I'm going to buy a seat in a mastermind where people are already at that point. So what would that give me? That would give me access to everybody. That access will give me the ability to talk to these people and understand how they operate and how they think. That alone is going to make me my money back. Because sometimes you just need to get the idea out of your head that this amount of money is a lot of money. When you say that, $100,000 is a lot of money, you're not going to make that, because you put a gap within your mind between your current state and your desired state. You put that gap, and what happens is that you can never achieve it. But if you're constantly talking to guys that are doing 100K a month, it's going to be the new norm. When you hit it, you're not even going to celebrate, because everyone else around you is already doing that, and you just got to play catch up. That's what it's all about. And so that's why I believe so much in masterminds and everything. If you can buy a seat with people that are already at where you want to be, you'll get there so much faster. Because instead of thinking like, 100K a month is so much, it's the new norm. And you talk to them on a daily basis and you figure out how they operate, how they think, their frequency, everything about them. You're going to get there. You're going to get there.
For sure.
Yeah.
No, I really like that concept as well, because, it's one of those things that but then when someone puts it out loud, I think it's very well phrased. And even what you said about the gap between your desired reality and your actual reality and being able to close that.
Yeah.
For example, I know you've had Nero on.
Yeah.
One of your
you heard it from him as well, right?
Yeah, I'm very familiar with Nero. Yeah. He's great. Yeah. But it's exactly that, like closing in that gap and actually being around these types of people. And especially with a story like yours where you're 19 already doing these numbers, if these guys are, early 20s, late 20s, even 30s, they're going to see you and be like, yo, this guy's young, he's killing it, he's hungry. It makes it easier to help. Yeah.
I want to touch on that actually, because a lot of my clients are like 26. I signed a guy today, he's 48-year-old, and I asked him, like, after he paid the invoice and everything, I asked him, like, what made you join? And he was like, you're 19, and I was like, he was saying, like, if you're 19 and you can do this, I can do it as well. And we look at it as like, being 19 is a disadvantage. We're young. People won't look at us the right way. They won't respect us because of our age. Like, I'm looking at it as like, bro, leverage whatever you have to your strength. Because I used to look at my age as like a weakness. I was like, I'm 17. No one's going to care about what I say. I sound like a toddler because my voice didn't crack yet, And no one took me seriously. I thought in my head. But I realized, like, okay, if I can do it when I'm 17, 18, why can't you do it as well? And so I flipped it. I was like, if I can do it while I'm this young, and you have way more experience than me, you're way more qualified, and you have way more of a reason to make this type of money, why can't you do what I'm doing? It's simply a lack of knowledge and lack of strategies and lack of systems. I have these three things. I can give them to you. So work with me. Like that's how I position it now. So I've learned to just turn my weaknesses into strengths, and it's like, it works so well. Because the old guys want to work with young guys that are hungry and put in the work. My clients know I'll run through a wall for them. If I want to get them a result, and they want a one-on-one call and it's 1 a.m., I'll take that call. I don't give a shit. You know, I'll run through a wall for these guys. And when an older guy sees that, they're like, I want to work with this guy. Because people their age don't. They don't really care. Like, they're already set. They're already stable and everything. We're still trying to, like, build up and, you know, build our legacy and everything. So, of course, we're going to do the extra effort. So, I think you can almost turn every weakness you have into a strength that nobody else can say, you know?
Learn to play your cards right.
Exactly.
No, I couldn't agree more. And,
Yeah.
you know, it's something that I think took me a while to realize in life, or not even realize, but actually act on it. And since I've started being more intentional about it, I think the results start showing, because truly everyone as an individual is unique and has their own strengths and has their own advantages, their own disadvantages, their own things that they need to work through, their own limiting beliefs. And if you're able to square yours into a box that makes sense and you can leverage it more, you're going to do better than otherwise.
Exactly.
In terms of what's next, so 19, 70K this month.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're going to hit 100 very soon.
Hopefully next month, because then I can say I did 100K a month before at 19.
At 19, there you go, for the proper clickbait title.
Hopefully. So maybe this title you guys can see is like 100K a month at 19. You know?
If you do, you know where it came from. But what's next though? You know, like what are the next steps? Do you see yourself, you know, you said you didn't want to be in info forever.
Yeah.
You've mentioned private equity. You know, tell me what's the game plan?
Yeah. So I want to get into SaaS. I want to solve bigger problems than just one by one. And so I'm solving big problems for a lot of clients, but I want to solve even bigger problems for like even more people, you know? And so the biggest problem in the info space right now is that there's a lot of scams out there. There's a lot of people that don't know who to invest in because there's really no software that checks that. What I want to do is I want to build a software that basically gets every single detail and every single statistic on how successful a coaching business is. So if you sign 100 clients, how many of them actually achieve the dream goal that you promised them? If we knew that for every single coaching business, think about how much easier it is to choose the right mentors to invest in. Because I know starting out, like that was the hardest thing for me, you know? If I didn't know people that were already in the space, like I would have invested in the wrong mentor. And I've heard so many people being burned by the wrong people. But if we have a software where it kind of validates every single offer and it shows you, okay, this type of person with these characteristics, with these experiences, with these type of skill set succeeds with this program, and it can mix and match the best programs for the desired goal that you want, that's going to change the entire info game. So I'm thinking, like, how do I change the entire industry now? This is more so of like a passion project. I'm not sure how I'm going to even monetize it. But if I created a software like that, where I helped people get in the online space easier, and also just get rid of all the scams out there, because there's so many. And the scams were always going to be louder than the good programs, you know? It's always going to be louder, because when someone gets scammed, they're going to shout at the top of their lungs. But when someone gets a good service, they're just going to be chill. They're going to be happy. You know, they're going to smile. But there's always going to be a bad stigma as long as there's no as long as there's no bridge in between the buyer and the seller. My goal is to create a software that bridges that gap and that shows people, hey, this program is suitable for this type of person. If I have that, I would have made everyone's life easier, and I want to inspire people to like start their online journey as well, because it changed my life. It really changed my life, and it could have changed my life even more if I had that type of software. So SaaS and then private equity, obviously. I feel like that's the big money. I want to make like, you know, the most I made in a day is like 18K. I want to make like $1 million in a day. You can't do that with info. At least not from my understanding, or not from what I've seen. You can't do that in info. And so info is a great starting point, but I want to get into SaaS. I want to get into private equity. I want to get into all these things where I can make millions of dollars a day. And I'm already happy now, but that's when I'll be even happier, you know?
What does getting into private equity look like for you?
I think the opportunity will come, same way that info has come to me. I think if I just keep on working on the right things, I'll attract the right people. If I keep on building my brand, putting myself out there, showing people my work, eventually someone in that space will want to partner up, and the opportunity will come, and I'll be ready for it. Because I'm working on my craft every single day. I'm learning every single day. I'm getting better at what I do. So opportunities will come, especially with the online space. You don't got to be lucky. It'll come to you if you really deserve it. So, yeah. I can't tell you how that would happen, but hopefully in the next 3 to 5 years.
For sure. And it's what
Yeah.
we were saying the other day about making your own luck, right?
Yeah.
Putting yourself in the position and ultimately increasing the surface area
Yeah.
you hold for the rain droplets of luck to hit you.
Exactly.
You touched on there essentially, the software play as you described it. I almost saw it as a bit of like a mission kind of goal,
Yeah.
like something you're going for. And I think it's an interesting question, right? Because you're still young and, bro, I'm sure you hear this a lot, but at your age, I used to think I was, king of the world, knew everything, and now
Yeah.
I see how little I did know back then. So maybe you haven't even, like, spent the time thinking about this so much,
Yeah.
but do you have, like, a core message, thing you want to stand for, thing you want to be, shouting at the top of your lungs, like, this is what I aim to give for the world? Is that something
Yeah.
you've thought about?
I think if I had to say one thing, it'd just be like care about your clients, care about the people around you. Serve first, serve others first. Like you'll never be in a worse spot when you serve people first. I think if everyone adopted the mindset, like the world would be such a better place. But everyone's self-centered. Everyone wants money in their own pockets first. Like, if you genuinely had a good product and you genuinely wanted to help every single person that paid you money, there's nothing bad that comes out of it. If anything, you'll make more money. It's ironic. When you don't care about money and you actually provide a good service, you'll make more money. People don't understand that. You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy. I've had clients buy my program for 9.5K. They paid me another 15K, and then they paid me rev share. In total, like, that client's probably paid me over 40, 50 grand. If I did a bad service, I would have only made 9.5, Like, if you want money, care about your clients, Get that mindset out where it's like, oh, money in my own pockets first, and then it's my clients. No, clients is always going to be your number one priority. Your service and product or whatever it is. And then it's, yourself. And also learn to just balance everything. I think balance is the key to having a good life. I say that as if I've lived a lifetime or whatever. I'm 19, but I'm extremely happy where I'm at. And I think a big part of that is because I've been able to find that balance. I'm not too much on the work side, but I'm also not too much on the fun side. I'm right in the middle. That's the perfect spot to be in because I'm building something that I'm proud of, but I'm also making memories that I can look back on and laugh at. I think that's generally the best balance that you can possibly have.
Beautifully put.
Yeah.
Another topic to dig into as well in general is like, the people you have around you,
Yeah.
As much as other people have put you on along the journey and, as what you described as luck and finding the right people along the way. I know you've helped some guys out who are your age, kind of coming out around you. I love you to speak a bit about the, way you try to, again, put people on or help out, pass the elevator down.
Yeah. I mean, I've had a lot of guys ask me, like, how do you get in the online space? Naturally, when they see the money I'm making, they're like, yo, teach me, And I asked my mentor, should I charge? He told me to charge. He told me to charge 3K, but I don't think I can ever sit down with a friend that's close to me and charge them money. I've always been the type of guy, like, no matter, like, I'm not money focused. And if I can help you for free and put you on the right path, I'm going to do that, And so I've put on probably over like 20 guys at this point. 17 have stopped, so it's unfortunate. 17 have not continued on, but 3 people are still going. And those 3 guys are making like 5K a month, which I'm extremely happy for. I put on a guy recently. His name is Matthew. He's on the come up. Shout out Matthew. He's a appointment setter right now. And he's probably going to make 3K a month in his first month of appointment setting. And I think that alone is just so special as well. Because if you can bring your guys up with you, why not? It's not fun to do it alone. It's not fun to have all this money and, like, what do you do with it? Like, bring guys up with you. Don't charge. Like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Like, do it out of just having a kind heart, And I think when you have that, you move with a different vibe, and people can sense that. I feel like the vibe that you have, and if you're just based on money, it's like, why? Money is great, but it's not everything. What's more than money is, like, helping guys that were with you at the start. And now that they see you come up, bring them up with you, you know? So I'll always be the guy to like help my guys for free, however I can. Connect them with the right people, get them opportunities. It may not work out, but at least I tried. At least I did what I could, you know? So I'm gonna put on as many guys as I can. Hopefully it works out for all of them, and if it doesn't, then at least I know I did what I could.
For sure, and you can't help someone if they don't help themselves.
Exactly.
But at the same time, from what you're saying, you're more than willing to help.
Yeah.
Just last couple questions I always
Mhm.
like to ask. But first one, if you could speak to a past version of yourself,
Yeah.
and you don't have to specify which, but a past version of yourself that was going through a tough time, whatever that looked like for you, what's the advice you'd give them right now?
That's such a good question. I think just trust the process, you know. What you're doing right now would be worth it, and you're this shy, insecure kid that is not they kind of been being pushed down this route of going down the route of just going to college and getting a degree, but do what you want, do what you think is best. And even though your parents have the best interests for you, and even though the people around you may have their best interests for you, you know what's best for yourself, and it's okay to disappoint them at the start to make them proud later on. I think if I understood that, it'd make my life so much easier, because I say all this, like, I went through so much of uncertainty and doubt because I was the only one doing what I was doing. I knew nobody. Everyone else that I knew that was doing what I was doing was in the US. It's like they're across the world. And it was normal there. There wasn't a stigma. And I was the only one that was doing what I was doing. And if I could just tell myself that it will be fine and it will all work out and it will be okay to disappoint them first to make them proud later on, like, that's the biggest piece of advice. Because, like, nothing's going to be guaranteed. You can't be certain about this result that you're going to get. You can't. It's impossible. Like, it's not how it works out. If you work on this business but it doesn't work out, it's completely fine. You get the experience, but put your all into it. Figure out a way to make it work. Because if you do, you'll learn more doing that than anything you could have possibly done in school anyways, Like, I like to say that, like, even if my business doesn't work out, this taught me more than any degree ever. So let's fall in love with the process, be okay with uncertainty, and then be okay with disappointing them first to make them proud later. That's what I'd say.
Beautifully put, man.
Yeah.
And, just before we wrap up, any final thoughts, feelings, stories, anecdotes that you'd want to leave the viewer with before we go?
I don't think so. I think we covered everything. Like the whole dad story about the book and everything. Like, I think we got it all, honestly.
For sure, man. No, we covered a lot of ground.
Yeah.
I think just one final thought for me to share, I think, is, I grew up around people with a similar background that you have. I have a similar background than you have. And I just want to give a lot of props to you and your parents for you turning out the way that you have.
Mm-hmm.
And, you're young. There's a long way to go. I'm sure there's a lot more achievements and big dubs. And, 70K a month will be something you laugh at in a couple of years down the line because of how much you've done since. But it's not everyone that is able to be hungry when you've been well-fed your whole life.
Mm-hmm.
And as I said, I think that's huge props to yourself, huge props to the family you have, to how you were brought up. And, I'm excited to see what SooWei in 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 years is able to do, bro. So.
I appreciate that. And I want to, you reminded me, actually. Like, this wasn't because of me, honestly. It was the people around me that I think allowed me to achieve this. Like, my parents, I honestly couldn't thank them enough because of the amount of support that they gave me. Because, I told them when I was, like, making 10K a month already. So they didn't know when I was, like, first starting out. I think if they knew early on, they would have kind of, like, just went against it. Like, just go to school, be a normal kid. But my parents really, really, really gave me the best opportunity to succeed. I can't thank them enough because the way I carry myself, the mannerisms I have, the way I communicate, like it was all thanks to them. I wouldn't speak English the way that I do if I didn't go to a private school, you know? I wouldn't carry myself the way I do if it wasn't for them. And it's like, they taught me everything I know. And so I literally would not be here without them. So, you know, if you're not close with your parents for whatever reason, try to be. Because regardless of what happened in your life or whatever happened, like, they're the ones that you're on this earth in the first place. And they're the ones that want the best for you. And so, you know, never forget where you came from. A lot of times, like, you achieve success and it's like you forget everything and you ditch your old friends and like, no, why? Like, be thankful for all the people that brought them up and stay grounded and stay humble throughout the whole process. I'm never gonna look down on people that make less money because I'm this top dog. No, never. I'm always gonna try and bring people up because that's the only good I can bring in this world. Money is so material. It's not real. Money isn't real. You know, it's just this thing that's created by humans and everything. And so the amount of money you make should not determine how you carry yourself. I talk the same way and I carry myself the same way as if I was not making anything. So don't think of yourself as more than what you are because of the money that you make. It does not fucking matter. And remember to stay grounded and thank your parents, be close to family, do this for the right reasons. Don't do it for the cars and the watches and everything. Do it for your family. Do it for living a comfortable lifestyle. Do it for your future family. Like, do it for that reasons. Because that's what's going to make this whole thing way more enjoyable for you.
Definitely. Love that.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think the same way that you managed to take criticism at 13 and use that to move towards becoming the version of yourself that you wanted to become,
Yeah.
you know, with different sets of circumstances and different parents and different upbringing, I think it's important to say also, you know, you can become whoever you want to be as long as you set your mind to it.
Exactly. And it's like everyone's dealt a different hand of cards in life. I was fortunate enough to be dealt a good hand. But I think the people that have good hands also decided to play the cards wrong. You know what I mean?
What is a good hand, bro? You know? 'Cause
Yeah.
as much as you did have a great hand, it's what I was saying before. You could have very easily coasted.
Yeah.
You could have very easily gone be a DJ.
Yeah.
You could have very easily, you know, gone under daddy's wing and worked for him your whole
Yeah.
life and chilled. You know? So, yeah, man, no. As I said, props to you.
I appreciate
Keep going at it, bro. And
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a lot more good to come.
Yes, sir. I appreciate that.
But yeah, if you want to watch another of these conversations with someone just a couple years older than SooWei, who has gone on his own journey and is, looking to change the world with his mission, you can check out my talk with Qasim right here.